Welcome everyone to MLS Ireland Does Predictions. This is week 13, a lucky number. Stay tuned. Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean and you're watching MLS Ireland Does Predictions. If you're new to this, hit that subscribe button. If you're not, welcome. Thank you very much for subscribing and all that kind of jazz. Sorry about the hair. It's very windy outside and I haven't had a cut in a while. But anyway, there's 14 games on this weekend. That's a lot of games to go through. It is week 13. That's probably a lucky number for a lot of few people, I suspect. So I might as well crack on with the first few fixtures. The first one is Columbus Crew against the LAFC. Now this one is going to be a kind of an interesting one. It is going to be on TV here, which I'm actually looking forward to. I think Sky just basically said about they probably had it up, but I didn't really notice it. But Columbus Crew against LAFC. It's going to be I think it's actually going to be a pretty good game. Two teams in the last four. Well, Columbus Crew have won 3, lost 2 at home. LAFC have away from home lost 2 and won 3. So, and their last 4 is pretty similar as well. But when you think about it, who have LAFC played? They got beaten by Austin and Columbus Crew, which isn't great. Granted, they drew against Philadelphia, but that was at home. A game you would suspect it's not too similar. Granted, Austin is now above them, and Colorado Rapids is now kind of slightly below them. But it's not too bad. They're actually doing quite well. But they're coming up against a Columbus Crew team who, strangely enough, are not doing too bad. Like they've only won the one. To be fair, that was against DC United. But I do suspect them to be actually not too bad in this one. I'm going to look at my predictions. I've had LAFC to win 3-2 just for the fact that LAFC are probably a better team. They're better than Columbus Crew at the moment, who are 18th overall. LAFC lost the last two games. They're going to try to come into this game with a bit more into it. So yeah, I'm going to go for like a 3-2 win in that one. The next one is FC Cincinnati against New England Revolution. FC Cincinnati now are starting to play a bit better, if that makes any sense. They're starting to show what they're capable of, which is going to be good to see. I'm actually looking forward to that. They're coming up against the New England team who are basically starting to pick up a bit more results, which is you would suspect them to be doing. But they're coming up against an FC Cincinnati team who are now starting to move up the table quite convincingly. They've won their last 4, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, it is going to be a fun one. I think FC Cincinnati, and it's probably going to be like a 2-2 draw. I just think these two teams are probably well matched for each other, so I'm going to go for like a 2-2 draw. The next one is DC United against Toronto. Now, this one's going to be an interesting one. I do like DC United's go at this one. I would say they're, going into this one, I would say DC United probably have a better record. They did get beat by New York City. Granted, that's not a bad result because New York City are a good team. They drew against Inter and they beat Houston at home. So you kind of think this is where Toronto's probably level is, Houston Dynamo. But Vancouver haven't really won anything in the last 5, to be fair. They beat Philadelphia and then they just basically fell off a cliff since then. So they're coming up against the DC United team in DC United. I think DC United will probably win this one. I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win. Just DC United at home, I think they should have a better grasp of this game, and Toronto aren't playing very well, so it should be a DC United win, but I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win. The next one is Nashville against Atlanta. Now, Nashville started off the season quite poorly, drew a few, and then started now to win a few. At home, they beat Real Salt Lake and Montreal. They're coming up against the Atlanta team who are just one place behind them, only winning the one game. That was against Chicago in the last 6. Not a very good a record. Granted, their away record isn't all that fantastic, to be fair. They're kind of like the opposite of Rebel. Really, the fair Rebel are all over the place. away from home brilliantly. But anyway, Nashville at home, I think they should be capable of winning this one. I want to go for like a 2-1 win. Just Nashville at home. They have that kind of aura. They haven't lost the season at home. Granted, they only played 3 times, but the last 2 were wins, and they done very well to win those games. The next one is Montreal against Real Salt Lake. Now Montreal, strangely enough, have only lost 1 game at home and won the 3, and they won the last 3 at home. So that's pretty impressive. I think they're 7th overall, which isn't too bad. 4th in the Eastern. So they were doing very well until they got beaten by Nashville. But now they're coming up against a Real Salt Lake team who, like I said, people don't really know whereabouts they are in the league. They beat Austin, which is a good result because Austin now are top of the league. And then they got beaten by Nashville. So away for home. So Montreal, if you take it into, got beat by Nashville away from home. And whereas Real Salt Lake got beaten by Nashville away from home. I'm going to go for a Montreal 2-0, just for the fact that they are actually doing very well at the moment. I know this last game was a bit of a blip against Nashville because Nashville aren't a bad team. They were at home and they have good momentum in their new stadium. So yeah, I'm going to go for like a 2-0 win to Montreal. And now the next one is Charlotte against Vancouver. Now this was an interesting one. A couple of minutes ago, Vancouver apparently their goalkeeping issues are poor at the moment because I don't think apparently their main goalkeepers are kind of out at the moment, so they may struggle in this one. I did the prediction. Well, I've kind of done all my research before this. I found that out, and I went for a kind of 1-0 win to Charlotte because Charlotte are home and they're doing very well at home. It could be Charlotte should win this one. They are at home, but their home record is pretty good. Their away record isn't pretty good. Granted, they got beaten by Montreal last in the 14th, which was 6 days ago, something like that. Last weekend. So I'm going to go for like a 1-0 win because Charlotte at home should be winning this game. The next one is New York City against Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire drawing with Red Bulls when they were actually doing very well. Even though Red Bull are very poor at home. Whereas New York City FC are cracking at home. They haven't lost a game. Granted, in the last 5, their home games were pretty good. Then 1 win away, then back at home again against a very, not going to say out of form team, but a team that are beatable, basically. So I went for like a 3-1 win to New York City FC just because they are at home. They're very good. They're on the up. They're probably the best informed team at the moment. So I think a 3-1 win is correct in that one. The next one is Inter Miami, who are very good at home against New York Red Bulls, who are very good away from home. This one was going to be a trickier one. Well, they started getting better at home, Inter Miami. But New York Red Bulls have only drew 1 game away from home. They haven't lost a game away from home. So that's pretty impressive. And to be fair, they're going up the league quite well. They haven't lost a game in a while, to be fair. So their last away game was 1-1 against Philadelphia. I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win to New York Red Bulls just for the fact that they're away from home and they have quite a good record away from home. Inter Miami, they're still, but I still think they don't really know what their identity is or some crap like that, like what people would say. I'm just going to go for like a 2-1 win. Red Bulls probably should win this one. They have better players. Better team, that's what I mean. They have a better team. Next one is Dallas against Minnesota. Dallas now are starting to shock a few people. They're 3rd in the league. Granted, they got beaten by Vancouver, which was a shock, but they beat LAFC, which was a bit of a shock, and then beat Dallas, which probably wasn't a bit of a shock. This is an interesting one, Dallas. I went for like a Minnesota. Minnesota are actually not doing too bad. They drew against LAFC and got beaten by Seattle. But Dallas at home, I think they're actually doing very well this season. I'm going for like a 2-0 win to Dallas just for the fact that they are a very good team, a very young team, and they have that youthfulness behind them, bastards. So yeah, I'll go for a 2-0 win in that one. The next one is San Jose Earthquakes. Ow, burp. San Jose Earthquakes against Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City won a game last week, or last night, 2-1 against Colorado Rapids. That was a bit of a surprise. But they're coming up against the Sporting San Jose Earthquakes team, who are kind of on a roll. They've only lost to 1 in the last 6, and that was against New York City FC, which isn't too bad. They beat Portland, drew away to Vancouver, and beat Colorado. So they're not doing too bad. I went for like a 2-1 win to San Jose. Just they're in a better shape of form. They're beating teams around probably a bit better than Sporting Kansas City. So yeah, I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win on that one. The next one is the leaders against Orlando. Austin kind of went off a cliff, basically a blip. Getting beat at home against LA Galaxy, then getting beat by Real Salt Lake, but then came back and beat LAFC in LA, which is pretty impressive. It's because they're going to go back there soon. It's not going to be an interest. It's going to be an interest. Well, it's going to be a weird one. I think Toronto's probably a good. It's going to be Toronto. Colorado is probably a good team. Orlando. Jesus Christ. Orlando coming into Austin should probably be an easy one for Austin. I'm going to go for like a 3-1 win to Austin. Austin are top of the league. They're starting to score goals. They are conceding 12 but scoring 25, so they are scoring a lot of goals. They are the best goal scorers in the league at the moment, so I think that will be a wee bit too much for Orlando. The next one is Colorado against Seattle Sounders. Colorado now, they're coming up against Seattle Sounders, who are now starting to know they don't have to worry about the Champions League because they won it. Congratulations. But they're coming up against a Colorado team who are not great at away from home, which is not unlike them. They were very good last season, surprisingly. But they're coming up against the Seattle Sounders team, who they're still good at home, Colorado. So I'm going to go for like a 1-1. They're just they are a good team. Seattle Sounders are starting to come back into it, so I think this is going to be a stalemate. So I'm going to go for like a 1-1. The next one is LA Galaxy against Houston Dynamo. Houston. LA Galaxy starting off the season quite well, and then just went all over the place. Drawn with Chicago Fire, which they should have really won. Beaten Nashville 1-0. It's kind of more of their kind of thing, isn't it? And then gotten beaten by Real Salt Lake 1-0. Beaten Austin 1-0. Then getting beat by Dallas 3-1 in LA. Then drawn against Minnesota. So a Houston Dynamo team on their day probably will beat them because they beat Nashville on their day. But then they got beaten by Seattle, DC United, Austin, Dallas. So this is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to go for like a 2-0 win to LA Galaxy. No, my luck will probably end up 1-0 or 1-0 or something stupid like that. But they are a good team. LA Galaxy, they just need to know. They just need to play with. They need to know each other basically a bit better, and I think they'll start to come good in halfway through the season. And the last one is Portland Timbers against Philadelphia Union. Portland, they're a strange team. Got beaten by San Jose Earthquakes, but beaten Sporting Kansas City 7-2 the week before that. So make that of what you will. They're coming up against the strange Philadelphia team. In the last 6, they haven't won a game. Lost 1 and then drew 5. Not good. Away from home against Nashville and LAFC, not too bad. But they drew against Red Bulls, who are quite good away from home. But then they drew against Inter, which isn't a great result. So they're coming against a Portland team who are quite strangely good, sporadic, strange at home. So I think Portland probably get a goal in this one, but I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win to Philadelphia. They're a better team, Philadelphia. Portland are just all over the place, and this is what I always say. If you think Portland's going to win this game, is when they don't. I kind of thought they were going to win this game because Philadelphia haven't won in a while, so I'm going to go for a 2-1. So, yep, that is my predictions. I hope you've enjoyed them, and if you stayed this long, thank you very much. Sure, I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.